Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Anissa Avon, and I am the CEO of TurnKey Coaching and Development Solutions. And this afternoon's webinar is with our expert, Fletcher Wimbush, who in a moment I'm going to have him introduce himself and share with you a little bit more about what we're going to learn about his talk today, Compassionately Disperse Your Workforce. And I have to tell you that I have only recently been introduced to you, Fletcher. Thank you. Sunday, I do believe.
It's been a pleasure.
So before we begin, I want to introduce you guys to our sponsors and tell you a little bit about TurnKey. TurnKey is an enterprise learning and development solutions provider. That's me there on the screen. And with my team, we decided that we needed to do something in response other than sit in fear about, oh my gosh, our world's falling down around us. And so I reached out to a few friends, and Fletcher got swept up into the net on that. And since Thursday, a week ago, we have literally put together a summit that is going to take place over the entire month of April, every Wednesday, every Thursday, with relevant conversations specific to leading in a crisis. So we've already had conversations today about emotional intelligence, and tomorrow we're going to have a conversation about being a resilient leader. We had a conversation last week about leading remote teams. New to remote teams. Tomorrow we'll also have a conversation around neuro leadership and how to use artificial intelligence and survey technology to make sure you're communicating effectively with your team. So we've got a pretty great lineup, and I feel grateful to have this opportunity to hopefully serve. If you are listening and there's a particular topic that you or your organization would like to hear, please reach out. We want to make these sessions meaningful for you and timely and topical. So if I can make it happen, I'll scour my team of experts to bring someone that can speak on the topic of your choice. I want to say thank you to our sponsors, the Whitmarsh Consulting Group. David Whitmarsh is the CEO of the Whitmarsh Consulting Group, and he is an expert in HR information technology consulting and multi-channel marketing. Do reach out if he may support your marketing efforts. I also want to say thank you to Insperity, HR that makes a difference. They have been generous enough to sponsor our summit, and they are inviting any participant to leverage them by giving away a free HR budget analysis, a confidential report, and a one-on-one debrief. I've said this before, but I'll speak to it again. This is kind of a big deal. It takes their business performance advisors anywhere from 3 to 10 hours to do this work and to meet with clients, and there's no obligation. Insperity knows that their services are not a good fit for all of our listeners and all of our participants. And I said, are you sure you want to do that? They said yes. And before they could change their mind, here we are. So now they're obligated. So do look at that link down at the very bottom is where you can find that. It's turnkeycoachingsolutions.net/H, R, EPORT, HR report. So real quickly before we move on, we do have a couple of special offers we want to make sure you guys know of, and that is specifically buy one, get one virtual training for your team that is exactly customized to whatever your organization is going through, whether that's extended remote work or managing new remote workers or business continuity or even outplacement. We've got you covered. And that leads me to something I'm super excited about, and that's introducing you to Fletcher Wimbush. So when David introduced us over the weekend, I shot Fletcher an email. He picked up the phone. Next thing I know is I'm watching a video, and I'm realizing what an incredible expert you are, Fletcher. I mean, I was moved by the video I watched. So will you share with us, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Will you share with us what we're going to learn today?
Yeah. So,
And
if you
who
don't,
you are.
yeah, if you don't mind, I'll tell a little bit of a story, I guess.
Please.
This is my story. It's how this came about, and I guess our organization's response to what's going on, it's been an emotional roller coaster for a lot of us and for us. But yeah, so we have two companies. One is a pre-hire and talent assessment company, and that's one of the offers for those folks that are going to retain some of their workforce and just want a discounted rate on DISC style or Myers-Briggs or Big Five personality style assessments. We're just offering a really great deal on that. It's a good time just to get to know each other a little better. And so that's started as our core competency in 1980. This is a legacy business. I took it over in 7 years ago, in March 10th, from my father. And we spent a lot of time coaching our clients on best hiring practices through they used our tools. And then obviously there's a lot of things you have to do to be excellent at hiring and getting the right people on the team and building and developing those teams. And so we provided a lot of support there. And eventually the clients started asking us to do professional search work for them. And so we developed a retained search business out of that, and continue to practice and develop content and just educate people on best hiring practices, and also working with candidates and helping them position themselves for success in their future. And we've always been very employer focused in our business. And it was March 16th for me was my D-Day with COVID. Like, holy cow, we got to go remote, which, we were lucky to be well positioned for that. We've had a lot of remote working activities already, but it was more the prospect of our clients, obviously stopped hiring. And if anything, they started laying people off. And it was like a tidal wave, we're, just shocked, And, the first day was crisis management day. We came up with a plan, and it wasn't a very good plan, but, it was something, and try to rally the troops. And, I'm looking at my team, thinking to myself on Tuesday, and just thinking about them. And my team's tenured. We've been together for all 3+ years or longer together. So we're close. I mean, I love these people. I think they like me, and I know they like each other a lot, and I mean, they're a team of A players, frankly. It's my dream team that I've worked for my entire life to build. And, the thought of just like, if we don't have any work to do, I mean, I may have to lay these people off. And that was, really devastating. And I just, it was the most heartbreaking thought that I could ever have that come across my mind. I never thought in a million years that I would ever be having to consider that. And out of just not knowing what else to do, I run in a lot of entrepreneur circles. I'm a member of EO, if many of you guys might be familiar with them. Getting all sorts of information everywhere. And, I just started doing the research, and we started compiling a guide to how to save your business and how to save your people in this crisis, and just getting people to the core information that they need. So cut through the news noise. And here's the SBA site. Here's the legislation. Here is where you can get unemployment. Here are the benefits for workers. Here are the options with the federal FLMA and the healthcare, or the sick leave acts and things. And now you've got the Payroll Protection Act and the CARES Act and all of these things. And so, that's just kind of snowball. I just didn't know what else to do. I mean, I guess I was doing it for myself. I was doing it to share with others. I just began, I couldn't even get this on a website fast enough. I just started sharing the Google Doc with people, and people were just, flooding to it. And so I didn't know what we were going to do. Later that week, somebody suggested, it was like, well, what about helping people, get back on their feet and get a job and get back to work? And I was like, duh, that's,
Wait, I'm an expert at that. Hang on. That's a good idea.
Yeah. If I have one superpower in life, hiring and just getting jobs and navigating this whole dynamic of that is what I know how to do. I've literally been practicing this my entire life. It's been like a 38-year journey for me. I mean, ever since I was even a little kid, literally I had to write a paper on this stuff to graduate from high school. And I chose to write it on that topic.
Oh my God.
So I've just been obsessed about this concept, for a long time, and it's my life's passion. And so, this is what I can do. If I can't help employers, find great people, then I can at least help great people find great opportunities. And there are out there, and that's one of the things we've been doing is tracking the job opportunities and sharing that with the world. That's on our site as well. We have a data scientist on staff, and he compiles the data every day. And there's a link somewhere on our website where you can find that and just see where they're at. So, one of the things we'll talk about is, if you want to do this yourself, first thing I would do is go there and then connect your people with those resources where they can, just help them, point them in the right direction. Because, not everybody is, savvy at these things as we are. I think it's, some of us, maybe it seems easy, but, not everybody, is comfortable with technology or has the same level of education, or, it's just not as easy for everybody. And
hey, Fletcher, sometimes your audio is going in and out. I think it might just be a projection opportunity.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Sorry.
You're good.
Yeah, I'll project a little more here moving forward. I definitely usually don't have a problem with that, but I'm getting a little emotional sharing this story. So, but thanks. So we've put together an entire 4-phase outplacement program and process, starting with the employer and strategy, and then 3 phases to get their people back to work. And our mission is to get America back to work. And our goal is to get 12,000 people's jobs in the next 12 months. And,
big goal. Say it again. I like it.
Yeah. 12,000 people back to work in 12 months. So, and when we set our minds to things, we don't fail and we don't give up. We're relentless. It's one of our core values.
Beautiful. One of the things that I'm expecting you to share with us today are the things that people do wrong when they're stuck with the situation.
Yeah.
And it's scary and it's painful. As I look at my own business, the most painful thought I could ever have isn't failing. It's having to tell my employees, I don't have any work for you, right? We're done, right?
Yeah.
So what are the things that companies are doing wrong as they begin this process, and how can they make a better plan?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are already had to make fast decisions and had to lay off lots of people right away. And, but I think the biggest thing is the level of compassion and empathy that we can share with folks. And compassion, empathy is partly in how we communicate, obviously, and how we communicate bad news, but it's also in our actions. So, if we just tell everybody, I'm sorry, we're out of luck, here's a pamphlet, goodbye. And we could say that as nicely as possible, but if we don't take action to show that we truly care and have empathy and want those people to be successful, we're all in a bad spot here. And, at least as employers, many of us are probably in some ways in a better spot than many of our employees' situations. We have a few more resources at our disposal, and, we can just spend a little more time investing in showing them, demonstrating that we care about their well-being and by helping them through this process. Right. So, and, that goes a long ways to just demonstrating that level of empathy and compassion. So just severing ties and just sending everybody a pamphlet and just is probably a recipe for some scary things. Obviously there's a legal component. You've got to get that in order. And that's, the less sexy part or less compassionate part, but you got to do that. And so, and the last piece is have a strategy, a SMART goal in mind. So, okay, this is not a great thing that is going to happen here, but what do you want the outcome to be? What are you trying to achieve? If it's just, okay, I need to cut X number of dollars of revenue or expenses, and that's it, well, okay, then that's simple. Just let everybody go and move on. But I don't think most of us feel that way. So we probably have a goal in mind for these people. Maybe it's to bring them back. Maybe it's just to see them get back on their feet. Maybe it's to see them get back on their feet and get a great job that they can love. But put that in terms of a SMART goal, things that are specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. And make that part of your strategy when having to do these workforce reductions is crucial. So then the other thing, you Insperity or in some of these other people you talked about, so you can measure the outcome. Yeah. Were you successful? Were they successful? Did you do the right things? Did we not? And that's really important.
It's really important. So when you're saying set some goals, there are some basic goals that we know they're going to want to set, right?
Yeah.
If in fact they understand the outcomes, the negative outcomes if it's not done right.
Yeah.
A little bit about, well, if you're going to do it ideally, if you have time to do it ideally, what does that look like and why? Why not just send out a pamphlet? See you later, alligator,
Yeah, well, there's a lot.
But
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of hidden costs and goodwill issues involved here. And, in the presentation, we'll lay them out. But, I mean, the most obvious one is unemployment insurance costs. I mean, for every day that these people are collecting unemployment, and this is going to be a long haul, and nobody has any answers. I don't have any perfect answers for anybody right now. I can't tell you I can get people back to work tomorrow, but I can tell you that I will work tirelessly and relentlessly until they get back to work, and that's our promise.
Right.
But the sooner that happens, then the less you're going to pay in those future unemployment insurance costs. So that's the easiest, lowest hanging fruit. The one that I think many people don't know unless they've been through this is there's a 10% chance of every person that you lay off will turn into a litigated workplace dispute or issue, right? Yeah. And that's
a really big number.
That's from multiple really credible sources. So that's recent data from Hiscox Financial or Hiscox Insurance, their arm there, and from the Small Business Administration. So that means roughly 1 in 100 will go into a fully litigated. This is like, lawyers, courtrooms, $150,000 to $250,000 costs on average. This doesn't even count all of the smaller claims that are just going to go through the more traditional arbitrated or mediated disputes that will happen that, cost thousands to tens of thousands of dollars for each one of those. So the risk is huge in that area. And what do you think people are going to do if they've been left with a bad taste in their mouth? And they're sitting on the couch watching daytime TV with the, shark attorneys on all over the place. If they're desperate, and they're not working, they're not staying active at trying to get. So, I mean, first off, if you're staying active and trying to get your life in order and get back to work, that's a job in itself, and that's going to keep people distracted and engaged in their own futures. Which keeps them away from, sitting on the couch, dwelling in their own, misery, which they, have every right to do. But I mean, hopefully we can coach them through this so that take a little bit of a different output. So, I mean, that's huge there in itself. Now, the other one that's so hidden, but is your employer brand or your brand itself. Depending on your brand in the marketplace that everybody sees, if damaging that goodwill has a potential infinite cost to your company. Damaging that from the employer brand standpoint, I'm sure almost every single entrepreneur I've talked to so far wants to bring back at least a decent portion of their workforce. I mean, most of them are telling me there's probably no way I can bring them all back, but I need to and I want to. The cost of hiring and retraining and getting your workforce back up to speed is enormous. So yeah, we want to take care of these people during this transitional period, furlough period, or temporary layoff period, or, I mean, even if you're not furloughing and you have to lay them off, you probably still hope to try to retain some of these people. And so if you're a jerk, it's not going to go well.
Yeah. I think I think there's research to back that very thing up. If you're a jerk, it's not going to go well.
Yeah. I mean, that's simply put, right? So.
Do you have, and I know that you have, your agenda. So so you just proceed. And if I ask questions and you're going to get to them, you tell me to
okay. I guess, you're supposed to, I got to share my screen now. I'm sorry.
There you go.
Thanks.
Because that was something that I was going to ask you, about, and I imagine at some point you'll get to that. So push pause on me. Go ahead and show your screen, but push pause on my question if you're going to get to this. I do want you to address how the compassionate treatment of those employees in this time can reduce the likelihood of 10% litigating. And that has a very specific cost mitigation factor that I think is important.
Yeah. And so, I don't know, maybe we should get into it, and I'll start addressing that a little bit here later.
I suspect you will.
And I'll get through some of the early stuff. We covered it here, but we're having such a great conversation. I forgot to turn on the presentation, so I appreciate there. So, I mean, the premise here is, there's already been 3 to 4 plus million jobs lost already. Another 9 to 11 million are at stake. And this is going to have ripple effects for a long time. This is not just what's going to happen tomorrow, but in 3 months and 6 months and 12 months and 24 months. Unfortunately, there's going to be companies that just are either going to have significant reductions of workforce due to the repercussions, just lost business and lost activities, to just outright not making it. So, this is not me. This is, chief economist at Moody's, saying this. So, we really need to prepare ourselves for that. And obviously we want to do the things to make our business successful to prevent this, but it's, a lot of it's the writing's on the wall. So this is, we talked about this, good introduction, and our mission here is to, help get Americans back to work. And we talked a lot about the financial costs there, but, just to real quickly recap it here, even on a layoff of 25 workers here, you've got a potential exposure of 62,000. So it's quarter million, essentially. So the unemployment.
Can you go back to that? That is a staggering number.
Yeah.
If a company were to lay off 25 workers and avoided just 1% litigation incidents.
Yeah. 1 in 100.
Avoid 62,000. That makes me speechless.
Yeah. Yep. And, in 9 states, including California, a couple in the South, and New York and the Northeast, that the odds are 50% higher that you will go into litigation.
Wow. Due
to a termination. So, yeah. Okay. If you're in one of those states, you definitely want to be thinking about how to mitigate those risks. And is it possible to mitigate them all? No, obviously. But, having a strong legal strategy combined with an outplacement strategy, whether you do it yourself or you hire someone like us to help with that, goes a long ways to mitigating those. And, for some of the reasons we talked about, but we'll talk about that a little more as we get into to what you need to walk employees through, right? And the things that they need. So, you could talk about emotional intelligence. Everything is about putting yourself in the other person's shoes, right? So, if we can't put ourselves in their shoes and think about it from their perspective to start this journey, then we're probably going to make a mistake. We really need to think about, how is this going to affect these other people? What is it that they're going to need in order to get their lives back together? And how do we support them in that, right? So I went off on a tangent there, but unexpected turnover we didn't talk about, but this is maybe even a bigger killer. If you lose half your workforce and you think the other half of the workforce is feeling good about this, especially when the other half is telling them how poorly they were treated, right? So this is going to be a communication thing. It's going to be a compassion thing. It's going to be an empathy thing, and how you handle this situation, and also what you do for the people that were, dispersed there. Because guess what? They all know each other. They're all friends. Just like my team, we all have a relationship with each other. And there's a friendship at some level, and there's professional, so, sure as heck, they're going to be communicating about how that transition went. And, the people you want to keep may not feel very good about where they're working after all this, right?
So this is saying that as an organization goes through furloughs, layoffs, et cetera, that in itself, the remaining employees are more likely to turn over.
Yep. By a lot. Right?
By a lot.
Compared to normal.
And so the maintenance and relationship, not only of those you are laying off, but those who you are retaining, has to be attended to. It's not business as usual.
Yeah. Yep. Put yourself in their shoes. And there's two different pairs of shoes, the ones that are being laid off and the people that are staying, and should be communicating and doing things that add value from their perspective, right?
Very good.
So, I mean, the numbers are staggering, what the potential risks are. Some of the data shows, a well-done outplacement can reduce these risks by well over 50%. So, I mean, you can cut these costs by, well over 50% doing it right.
So go back to that. I think we're all having a moment here because that's significant. That's 100 for every 100 employees that you lay off. These are the odds. Now, obviously, there's a range here. There's probably a low end that you can expect, and then a high end, right? Where do these numbers fall in that range?
This is right off of the basic data there, right? So this is probably a mid-range expectation is what I would expect.
That's even more painful than I thought you were going to say.
Yeah.
So
it's huge. I mean, these costs alone could put you out of business.
Absolutely. So folks on the call, if webinar with us, if you have questions or if you want to throw some curveballs towards Fletcher, don't hesitate to ask questions or tell us what you're facing. You can certainly do it just to the panelists, and I'll keep your name anonymous if you'd like. But we want to make sure that you get any questions or curiosities or concerns that you have joined today with addressed. So thank you, Fletcher.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm sure you'll chime in when a question comes. And so the first thing, I mean, I told my story. The very first thing is, how do I not downsize? How do I prevent laying people off? So there's 4 really good ideas that have been thrown at me, and I've actually have friends who are doing these things. And so, so far they're working. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is unprecedented times, but I think they're good ideas, and there's something to consider here. So, I mean, first of all, if you do, so a friend who's got 15 hotels, 3,000 workers, laid off 95% of his workforce. I mean, absolutely tragic. He's continued to pay their health insurance for at least next 2 months. And they're considering what else they can do.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's a basic human need. That's a basic necessity that we need. And he's covering the whole cost of the premium. So they pay nothing out of pocket. So, I mean, that's something, that we need, right? Have to go to ACA and go pay whatever, $3, $5, couple grand for a family. I mean, that's not a great option when you just lost your job. Temporary partial pay reductions. I have another friend who's in the learning space, and they've done this, and they did it. And the cool thing to think about, he did it in tiered ways. So the people at the very lowest end either got none or very minor partial pay reductions, and the people at the highest end got the biggest. And there's like 4 tiers, start at like 5%, 15, 25, and like 100 for the CEO, right? Just no salary, right?
That's huge.
So, that's a creative way of doing this. I definitely would consider that. I'm sure, these aren't all foreign ideas. If you're a small business, offering ownership or equity in the company in exchange for pay could be a great way. If you've got a star performer, developer or salesperson or manager or somebody in your business that's a rock star, and you just couldn't fathom leaving, or like me, I can't operate without my people. I'd be out of business. So I have no choice. I have a choice. I could lay them off. I could do these things, but I want to come out, I want to survive this thing stronger than I was, and I'm not going to do it without my people. Right. So, this is an option for those in that kind of a situation, especially with their key people, or even all their people. You can look at ESOP programs as maybe a potential option there for smaller companies. So, one thing that we've been actively working on and getting some traction on in talks with some of the big major corporations like 7-Eleven and Walmart and a few others is loaning the workforces. So, have similar type of skill sets maybe, or demographic or type of, worker. Maybe it's, frontline, kind of blue collar worker. Well, maybe it's in retail, but you can put them into warehouse or something like that. Right. Proactively going out and seeking out those opportunities for your folks, like utilizing the resources that we've been putting out. Everything's free too, guys. So everything that we have on our site and these resources and everything we're going to talk about today, all the resources that you need to do this are free, and they're on our site, and there's more coming up every day. So, the way we've always done business is we enable people first. And then if they want help because it's a lot, or they just prefer not to deal with it themselves, that's, how our business has always operated. So, take advantage of these resources, but, start with that, where are the jobs, right? And then literally go and start collecting those opportunities. They're putting together an intranet for their company. Another friend who's doing this, and here's a link to Walmart's, here's a fast track to 7-Eleven, here's cleaning company that's got, who's interested in the workforce, right? So there's different levels. Like, here's just opportunities. Some companies, unfortunately, haven't been very interested in playing ball. Some have been much more cooperative and like, hey, let me get the message out to all my business leaders. They're looking out for these people. We want them, so we've gotten various responses from those types of efforts. And, but, again, it's not terribly complicated, follow the trends, make the calls, make the connections, and,
So you're actually advising leaders to facilitate, find the places where their employees can bridge until whatever next career or opportunity shows up. So
what greater act of compassion or empathy could, there's probably almost nothing greater than that, than saying, look, not only do I care about you and I'm going to make sure you're taken care of in the meantime, but I'm going to actually go advocate for you.
Huge.
Absolutely huge. And it doesn't take as much work as you think, right? So, something, if somebody, one-on-one, later wants to talk about this and how to do it, more, get some details, then I'm happy. Anyone in any aspect of this or the whole thing, I'm happy to just spend time with you. Anybody on it. So.
Thank you.
So how does it work? This is going to be an overview of the things that you should be thinking about doing. Maybe not everything applies to everybody, but, this is pretty broad reaching. There's like 40, 50 different action steps in 4 phases that we put together that I think, you need to be considering. So, ultimately, we talked about this a little bit, but first off is have a strategy session. If you have a coach, like someone like TurnKey, I'm sure you guys help with strategy sessions. If there's too much emotion, if there's just too much on the line and it's hard for you to see clearly, then get a coach to help you through that process. Right.
Right.
Obviously that's something that we do for our outplacement clients, is we help them with that strategy session. But we talked about this earlier, and the things over here are probably the key things that you're looking for. You need to clearly define what your desired outcomes are. You need to figure out who's going to own which part of the process. So in crisis, whether it's the crisis is I need to disperse these folks and we want to find a compassionate way, or we're just trying to figure out what to do, it's too easy just for everybody to be running every which way and running into each other, right? So, have a clear plan, a clear vision, decide who's responsible for what, clearly define those responsibilities so that we don't get in each other's way. Communicate often in a cadence, like daily huddles or weekly one-on-ones. Don't lose that routine, in other words, right? And then ultimately is setting those SMART goals. I mean, as a big picture for the organization, what's our SMART goal for what we're trying to achieve in this crisis? What do we want to have happen and what do we want the outcome to be? And then those tailor down to the individual. So, what's each person's responsibility in relation to it, right? So this is how to get clear-headed, get ready. A lot of that will be, you'll be talking about the legal aspect of it, and then also your corporate social responsibility and the message that you want to send, right? And, do you want to rehire them? I mean, these are all questions you need to ask yourself and you need to answer, and there's probably more, right? And what's your budget and how can you do these things? What services can you offer? I would start with the goal in mind, and then I would, then figure out these other things first, right? Not work the other way around, because there's creative ways to offer more that may not cost as much, right?
That's absolutely right. Some of the things that you've already shared are internal initiatives that retained employees, HR can help spearhead. And I've seen folks that come up with, we want to spend no more than whatever the number, 50,000.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you no longer have a strategy to accomplish your goals. But instead, right, if you start
right?
with what you want to accomplish is what you're saying.
Yeah. We see this all the time. We do a lot of software development, and my development teams are freaking awesome, but they get stuck in the weeds, and I'm like, how does that align with the bigger goal? And they're like, oh, wait a second, it's not that important. I just had that conversation today with somebody. So
yeah, perfect analogy.
So the next piece here is okay, now once you've executed the disbursement or the reduction strategy, the communication, you've let everybody know, and you're now hopefully also explain to them what the path is, which I recommend kind of a 3-step process. It takes about 4 weeks to go through this process, and then it doesn't really end after that, but you got all the tools in place in 4 weeks, and you're looking for a job, you're actively applying and hopefully interviewing, but and for some people it'll go quicker than others, but lay this out for them in that communication. Okay, here's the strategy we've laid out for you that we recommend, and here are the tools that we're going to give you to help you execute that strategy. But it starts with that custom game plan with each person. You got to sit down with them, because everybody has a different, unique set of needs. And those needs are really going to be focused on a lot of the emotional side of this thing. It could be, I can't lose my house because my kids are in school and they've been at this school, and them having to change schools would be the most devastating thing to me. Okay, so that's the number one most important thing for that family, right?
Yep.
So how do we get them to stay in that school district, or at that school, right? And so now we can plan around that. Well, what can we give up in exchange for that? Or what do we need to do in order to do that and help that game plan? But that's just one of many examples. So it's just figuring out all those responsibilities, both financial and personal goals, getting that done, and having just somebody to talk through, because again, I mean, you guys are in the coaching business. A lot of us are entrepreneurs and business leaders. We've been through these exercises, but not everybody else goes through these types of exercises where they create a vision and a mission and clearly define their own personal outcomes and goals, right? So that's really important. So
can you go back to that one more time? I have a question for you. So I have a relative, has worked for a company for 15 years, 800 employees. They just laid off all but 82. And so the step 2 sounds brilliant, a custom game plan for each employee, but the bandwidth for them, their HR department, they won't be able to do that. So that's where an outplacement or an outsourcing solution can really come in.
Yeah.
What would you recommend they do immediately if they don't have an outplacement service lined up or aren't sure about that? What do they do right now to address those employees on an individual or personal level?
Well, you can triage this situation a little bit, and you can work with the management team to, at least create a plan for them. And,
Yep.
And they can coach the people. They know these people well, and
That's
you
perfect.
can ask them to do it, right? So I mean, any given team, hopefully, or you assign a team, a leader. Maybe it's just a senior person that's an individual contributor, and they
probably has to be someone that could be a little gifted at this. Can you imagine the manager I don't like coaching me after I've left? Hello.
Yeah. I mean, these are creative solutions that you can do that will you can do with your own workforce. I mean, obviously having experience in these areas and having a plan and having practice at it is that's why you would look at outsourcing this activity and having somebody else do it for you. But
so if they have a PEO, access to those mental health options may be available. If they don't, we're talking about referrals and some kind of support mechanism, some kind of continuity even after staying in touch with their peers, whether it's a Slack or a Zoom chat on a regular basis or something.
Facebook group. We've set up a peer-to-peer Facebook group, more just across the board, anybody who's looking for work, and including our clients' people, but
nice.
they can exchange ideas and strategies and network too, because the number one way to get a job is to network. So, step like 37 here, but pretty quickly, the very first thing, if you're recently unemployed, is you should start asking people who who's hiring, right?
Yeah.
But the emotional support access, if you can create access or provide access, this is something that we're working on. That's actually why it's bolded. But we're exploring some partners in this area for low cost options to add into the service offering. But through like your COBRA or your existing health insurance, just helping people, let them know that that's there. Make it a point to share that with them, because I mean, obviously, as a career coach, as a job counselor, there's a lot of emotional support there, but some people are going to need more professional emotional support in an ongoing basis, because I mean, it definitely could be devastating for people, right? So it's just one more thing to really think about as you're adding into the offerings, the first thing that happens is you can't just start looking for a job tomorrow after you've been laid off. I mean, I had my own emotional trauma with this, COVID thing. I mean, I went through phases like denial, and then like crisis management, and then like dread or depression, and then, I came out of it and with a new mission and purpose in life. And, that's given me energy and invigorated me. But they're not, step one is they need to get their basic needs met. And so you want to compile all of those resources, the local resources, the federal resources, with all of the news and the three different acts or bills that they passed in order to help recover. There's a lot of confusion. So getting all that information together, figuring out what's relevant for that person, and getting them connected to that resource as quickly as possible is huge. It's obviously they're going to need unemployment, but they need to get their taxes done. They maybe need to defer tax payments and need to understand how that works. But you got to get your taxes done in order to get that government cash payment if you haven't filed them yet. So, you just got to do it. So maybe they need help. They need connections with CPAs, and we have huge networks of CPAs, if they need that kind of thing. The other piece of this is, they need to triage a little bit. They need to figure out what their options are for housing. Number one, obviously we got to have shelter. I know I look like a homeless person. I do live in a house that's very small. I have been quarantined for a very, very long time. So unable to get a haircut in a while, but no, I mean, this is obviously, that's basic need. So there's strategies there to help, to ask. And there's also obviously some of the recent legislation that they can take advantage of to defer rent or mortgage payments and deal with these things. Also, just deferring all different other kinds of credit. So there's a student loan deferment already out there. Most credit card companies will work with you. So just knowing or being aware, and then also having some tools, some templates, and some strategies in your back pocket, so that when you go to the credit card company and you say, hey, can you give me a break for 2 months or 3 months or whatever, that you're more likely to get it, right? Healthcare, you got to have that set up. So, whether it's through COBRA or ACA, so getting people connected directly to that. Food might be an issue, SNAP options, and other social services, and then also especially in large cities, there's a lot of extra services out there for folks that are in this situation. In options, maybe it's delaying utility payments, or maybe it's a grant, or maybe it's money, or extra food benefits, things like that. So honing in on what's going on in your local area. And this, again, all things that we help people with. Each city and workforce is a little bit different in this particular area or situation. But again, this is something you can do as an HR department. You could put all of this together and have a packet ready for these folks and walk them through it and explain to them what these things are and coach them through it a little bit, and get them, these resources and tools so that they can get back on their feet, because they can't get a job when they're laying on their back, right? Any questions here?
Yeah.
Okay. So we got like 13 more minutes. I'm almost done. So
good stuff, Fletcher. Thank you.
Okay. So ultimately, I think 99% of your workforce, they want to go back to work. Nobody wants to sit on the couch all day. I mean, we're all, quarantine stir crazy already. And you've seen the videos on Facebook. I mean, oh my gosh, so working on getting back to work and having, all, again, it starts with this plan. If we have an action plan, a smart plan for ourselves, smart plan to get ourselves back on our feet, and now a plan to get a job, that's keeping us active, engaged, working on something towards bettering ourselves and our situation, right? So, that's my, well, in response to something else really, but, working on getting a job is, getting that resume lined up, getting it written right. It could be formatting, just understanding how to present yourself. Tip here is the best thing you can do when trying to get a job is to clearly articulate your measurable achievements.
Yes.
In measurable terms, and share that clearly, and keep it simple and keep it focused on those things. Everything stems from that, but that's a quick tip. Letters of recommendations and references. So I don't hire anybody who can't get a reference from their previous boss. They're the number one consumer. That's me personally. Go get them, build relationships, go call your old bosses for the last 15 years and say, hey, we're all in crisis. I need your help. Would you take 3 minutes to write me a letter of recommendation? Yeah. And if someone needs to call, like, could I have them give you a call? Would you be cool with that? Right? Go be nice, and LinkedIn profile. We offer assessments. Obviously we talked about that earlier. So just getting to know yourself better, your own natural strengths and weaknesses. We offer a DISC or Myers-Briggs style assessment, as well as a Big Five. And we're doing that for basically, anywhere from 75 to 90% off for the next 60 days for those who either want to offer that for the people or maybe being dispersed, or even for your internal people. You got 60 days unlimited usage there. So that's really a huge, promo that we're offering. We just think, getting to know yourself better is amazing. So, we just want to see people do that. We talked a little bit about this, but, having that clear personal mission and vision statement is really important. Mine is to get America back to work and to get, and the vision is to see 12,000 people get jobs in the next 12 months here. So it's crystal clear, super focused, and hopefully, is doing something good for the world, right? Those are, some tips on hopefully writing and creating those missions. We're writing impactful cover letter. And one thing I think is really cool, and I strongly suggest, is do a video resume. So basically you can share and, you can see and cut through the noise, because there's going to be 10 times as many applicants for every job coming up. And you can put that video interview on your LinkedIn profile too, by the way. So you could share that. So the last phase is this ongoing or more strategic job hunting. So it's creating a smart plan just for job search. So how many places am I going to apply to today, or each week, or every day? How many interviews do I hope to get? How many maybe cold calls I'm going to make to decision makers where I'm a really, really good fit, right? Maybe I've got a special skill and I can target those people clearly. And so adjusting the plan, that's the continued job coaching that goes on, and offering skill development. So we partner with New Horizons Learning Centers. They're probably one of the biggest skill or retooling or workforce development kind of program out there. Everything from Six Sigma to Six Sigma trainings, leadership classes, Excel, technology, QuickBooks, counting, so whatever it is that you want to get retooled for, we can get you connected with them in conjunction with the local workforce. And you can do this too, your local workforce development programs, and they can get those resources for free. They don't pay anything. The employer doesn't pay anything. It doesn't cost anybody anything. The government pays for it. So, if they're in a situation where you really need to tool up or retool, or just have a lot of downtime during the search, then I would take advantage of that too.
Absolutely.
So last couple things, key features. We definitely have a network of employment attorneys who, if you don't have one, you definitely need to get one you can work with. But for us, it's dedicated. So, my team's been with us forever. So you're going to have the same person walking you through the whole process. And, you want to do the same thing for them. You want consistency in the conversation. So that's really important. We also do group webinars and like this twice a week. So that's coach-led and peer participants. So focused on any one of these like 40 plus different topics to just get a deep dive and just exchange or ask questions and get deeper. And then we talked about the private Facebook group. It's moderated by the career coaches, and it's a great place for peer-to-peer sharing as well as networking. So, and then following up, again, all these things are things you can do yourself. Simple Survey Monkey, measure the results. You had a smart plan in the beginning of what you hoped the outcome was. Let's say I want to see 75% of my workforce get a job in 90 days. Well, follow up, measure it, figure it out if it happened, right? So, we would report that back to, our clients. Targeted job opportunities, we talked about that, looking for like-minded, similar type workforces and needs, taking, hospitality workers and putting them into retail environments like 7-Eleven or grocery stores, or into maybe warehouse environments with retail workers or something like that, or driving jobs, or the list goes on, the options there, but, creating those bulk opportunities as well as the smaller, more targeted ones. So, our clients love us. We've got over 100 reviews on Trustpilot and Capterra between the two businesses. And so service is number one. The reason why our clients like us is because we're unwavering in our commitment and level of service and ultimately results.
Very good.
That's it.
So I think that we're going to see a lot more of us that are having to face this challenge, even more than what we've seen. Yeah. What would you say if an organization was to, Not just the organizations. I think we talked about the organizations that are already having to furlough or lay off. They're in the middle of their plan. Your contact information is on here. So we definitely encourage folks to give you a call. And then, for the organizations who are trying to figure out their strategy, they haven't quite figured it out. What might they do right now? If it's an HR friend that's on the call, how can they make the case for managing this correctly, when in fact perhaps the folks above them don't necessarily or their peers agree that this is something that's important?
Well, I think the strategy session will really dictate that, going through the process of having and discussing that strategy, so you can force that. I mean, look, you're going to need some sort of a plan, but creating structure and keeping it focused on the outcome could really make the case for you, right? Because if you go to the CEO of a big company or a small company and you say, okay, we got to cut all our workforces. What's your goal? What's the purpose of this? What's the plan? Okay, maybe the first blush reaction is, oh well, we got to cut $10 million in costs. Well, okay, well, how do you want to be perceived after that happens?
Yeah,
or how do you feel about doing that? And how do you want other people to feel about this? You can just ask those simple questions, and then the light bulb's going to go on, and they're like, well, this, and okay, so do you want that to be part of what we're trying to accomplish, and make sure that sentiment that you wish is occurs, or is it not important? Because I mean, you'd have to be a real jerk to say it's not important.
Exactly. Oh, I missed a question. Kathy said, what was that last slide? Prepare ? And will the slides be available?
Oh yeah, this is just my Benjamin Franklin quote: by failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail, right? So
once said and well said.
Yeah.
So from here, Fletcher, why don't you share with people, you had created a couple of freebies, one of which is your complete guide, and the other is the 60 days of unlimited use of your personality assessments. And then I also believe that you were giving away as a freebie 10% off of so an outplacement package. Share with us how we can connect on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, at first is a guide to, I think, if I remember correctly, been going so far, but it's a guide to how to communicate layoffs to your workforce.
That's right. I have the title here: Complete Guide on How to Compassionately Conduct Layoff Meetings with Your Employees.
Yep. I mean, that's going to be part of how you're going to have to do that, right? And so, that's freebie, use it, adapt it, think about it. And then the other one is the assessments. We talked about that a few times. So, if you want to give that as a tool to people who are departing, or you want to keep, look at the people you've got internally, it's $450 for 60 days, unlimited use. Doesn't matter how many employees, 1 or 10,000. You can run them through that program. It's a remarkable offer. Most of you guys know, DISC and Myers-Briggs, you're easily $30, $50 to a few $100 a piece. So, if you have a sizable, decent sized workforce, I mean, this is as cheap as it comes.
Yeah.
You can also use that if you want to benchmark your existing workforce for future hiring and selection purposes. And like I said, we have data analysts on staff, so we can create a custom validation study for your organization, which nobody does, and everybody should do when they use assessments. Wow. Mm-hmm. Because they don't know how, and it's expensive or whatever. I don't know what the excuse is. Usually it's just too much effort, and it's really not a lot of effort. But, you obviously have to have a partner who can do that for you. And we've just got done. We just did one today for a mining company. Like, we did one for a restaurant the other day. We did one for sales and service operation the other day, and remarkable results that they found, like clear, definitive, like measurables that, but anyways, that's,
fantastic. Yeah. Well, I know that, if you join the call, you'll also get a link reminding you of where the bonuses and where those freebies are actually on our speaker platform that you signed up on. So Fletcher's links are all up there, and you can access that report, or take advantage of his unlimited use for multi-assessments portal for $450. And then his email, info@wimbushassociates.com. So Fletcher, thank you so much. This has been
Awesome.
incredibly educational.
Thank you, Anissa. Thank you very much for having me. And I just hope everybody stays safe and your families are healthy, and just stick with it. You know, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Stay safe and healthy.
Bye.
Take care, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.